Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So thanks everybody for joining. I really appreciate your everybody who's joining today. Just wanted to give a couple, just some information. So today we're going to be talking about Web 3.0 Tech Talk, the power of off-chain. We have a great group of panelists for you today. We have Neeraj Murarka, CTO of Bluzelle, Colin Evran, ecosystem lead for Filecoin. We got Raullen from IoTeX, Yilun Zhang, who's the CTO of NKN, Kevin Leffew, who is a technical solutions architect for Storj, and Jieyi Long, CTO of Theta. So we will also be streaming live on a couple different channels today. We're very excited about, this is actually the first time for us we've done this with Theta.tv. So thanks to them for allowing us to stream on their platform. We'll also be streaming live on YouTube. And for those that signed up for the webinar, you'll also be able to do it from Zoom. And I'll leave this up here for a few seconds if somebody wants to screenshot that or grab that to send off to friends and family. All right. I also wanted to take just a minute up front to kind of share a little bit. We're from NKN. So NKN, we're very proud to announce that we're actually launching NKN 2.0 today, actually at 9 o'clock today. So again, NKN 2.0, it's really both a new vision for us, but also an NKN 2.0 new mainnet software that you can download. And it's all about network as a service. So NKN 2.0 network as a service, we want to be the indispensable service for our future communication needs. And that includes two platforms. The first is DataRide, which actually has messaging, streaming, and file transfer service for people and things. And we also have NCDN, which is for video and rich media content delivery. So we've also helped to develop our ecosystem as well. So for miners, we're actually offering a new NKN commercial. It's a one-click install that not only allows you to run and mine on NKN, but also allows you to host the different services that we have, including NCDN and DataRide, which also gives you more opportunity for rewards, for mining rewards. And also, we've actually built up our users' applications as well. So we have some leading applications that we're starting out with, which is dChat and NMobile for messaging, which is actually built on top of DataRide. We have NFTP, which is our secure file transfer service, nShell for secure remote access, and nProxy for proxy service. So if you're interested, please check out and download today. You can experience it today. In fact, we just turned on the download about 5 minutes ago. So download, install NKN 2.0 commercial package. You can go to our forum, or if you're a developer, you can go to our NKN.ORG/developer and learn more about how you can contribute to the community. So the next thing I wanted to do was actually give you some context for today's discussion. So for Web 3.0, Web 3.0 is actually an evolution of the web, and blockchain has become the backbone of that by offering a governance layer for trusted transactions. So all the companies you will see here today have implemented a real world solution that incorporates blockchain. However, most modern blockchain solutions, and all of those you see here will be part of that, uses both an on-chain and off-chain elements, just as modern cloud applications have begun using both public and private networks. So typically, on-chain activities are good for cryptocurrency, other public related use cases, and off-chain for others. And because we're kind of really focused on off-chain, I wanted to kind of dig into that a little bit more. What are some of the benefits of off-chain? And I think that'll be a great kind of kickoff for some of the discussions here, because you're going to see a lot of different kinds of elements that have included off-chain to that. I think one of the premier reasons for off-chain is really high performance. Again, when all of the consensus processing and validation are eliminated, you can really speed things up. Increased privacy is another one that comes to mind. Not all data needs to be on the blockchain. So if you're building a chat application, for instance, like we do, you probably don't want all your messages stored on the public blockchain for everyone to see. And also, and this could be debatable, it can be less expensive, because for most blockchains, transactions have a cost or fee to it to execute, and that can be costly, especially when you get to scale. So having said that, I think we're going to start off with our first speaker today, which is Neeraj. let me stop my share. And let me just, so Neeraj is a scientist and technology entrepreneur. He specializes in computer systems architecture. Neeraj is the CTO and co-founder of Bluzelle Networks. Bluzelle builds blockchain ledger, decentralized and trustless computing software solutions in a protocol agnostic way. Neeraj leads Bluzelle's most ambitious projects to build a world decentralized, NoSQL-based database, powered by the Bluzelle token and Metaswarm technology. The database will disrupt the database space and is slated to be implemented as the basis of data storage for the world's leading blockchain products. So without further ado, Neeraj Murarka.
Thanks, Alan. Just sanity check. You can see my slide right now, just the slide?
Not yet. Are you sharing your screen?
Oh, just a minute. I will in a moment. IT issues. There we go. Is that better?
Looks
yes.
good.
Yes, we can see you now.
All right, so you can see the slide, not my navigator.
Yes.
All right, perfect. All right, and time-wise, how many minutes do I have?
10 minutes, and I'll give you about a 1 minute
perfect
indicator.
All right, thanks, Alan. So thanks, everyone, and good morning, good afternoon to people in North America, and I guess good evening to people in Europe. And if you're in Asia, well, thanks for staying up this late. So yeah, welcome to our presentation for Bluzelle Web 3.0, and I'm Neeraj Murarka. I'm CTO and co-founder of Bluzelle. I'll try to be real quick. We started Bluzelle in 2014 in Vancouver, Canada, and we moved our headquarters to Singapore in 2016. We did an ICO in 2018, and it was centered around our decentralized database. So that's what I'm going to talk about to start with, and then I'll move into our off-chain product. So yes, I'm going to start with we're using Cosmos. So I'm going to talk about that in our blockchain secure architecture, and then I'll move into kind of the main topic, which is our decentralized content management system, or DCMS, which uses our blockchain combined with off-chain just-in-time rendering of the content. All right, so the Bluzelle Cosmos blockchain, the secure architecture. So just real quick, we actually ran a validator competition for the last 3 weeks on top of Cosmos, and we learned a lot of things. So real quick, this isn't really the main topic here, but I wanted to talk about our architecture and what basically what is our backend on top of which everything that I'm going to talk about later runs on. So, we're using Cosmos. For those of you not familiar, it's a delegated proof of stake network blockchain. And this is kind of our design. We run our own validators. We encourage the public to run validators. And we have a pretty elaborate security design here. And this actually came about organically from some, I guess, white hat hackers who decided to attack our network while it was running. So we learned some pretty interesting things while we were at it. As you can see here, our validators run, but they're always protected by sentries. And we have 4 types of sentries here, and I'll get into that in a moment. But as you can see on the bottom, we allow the public to run validators, and that's actually part of the point, is that we want members of the public to be able to participate in this network. That's what makes it decentralized. And long-term, Bluzelle is not intending to run all the whole network. So, the sentries are there to protect the validators and ensure we have uptime and protect us from denial of service attacks. So 4 types of sentries, which are kind of interesting. One of them is private, which doesn't allow any access to the outside world. It really only allows our validators to talk to each other. So our friendlies, our gateway sentries use P2P, and they allow our sort of island of validators, we have security zone, to talk to validators in the outside world, or sentries in the outside world. And then when we move to the client sentries, those basically provide client services, so that if somebody's building a mobile app, a game app, whatever it is that they want, and they want to talk to our network, to one of our validators, they can do so through our client sentry. And then the sandbox one is a really fun one. We had a lot of requests from hackers saying, hey, we want to try to punch holes into your security. Can you give us like a punching bag? And that's our sandbox. So that's kind of where we tell people, yeah, go nuts. hit our sandbox and see what you can do. So it's kind of a fun way for us to figure out what are the problems in our network. That's our sandbox. So, you know, we hold a 66.67 supermajority right now for all our networks, which is technically not decentralized, but we're doing this just because it's a compromise until we sort of figure things out. So once we kind of gain enough trustworthy third-party validators to join our network, we're going to slowly relinquish that supermajority. But for now, we want to hold that just in the unlikely event that, you know, we don't have proper validators and we sort of have to keep the network going with our own validators. And I'm going to kind of skip this step, but we've got some pretty cool DevOps processes to really spin up a chain really fast. It's pretty interesting, and it's something that I'll be doing in a subsequent event for just my company, showing how we can spin up new blockchains in under 10 minutes using this architecture on a mix of AWS, GCP, and Azure. So now I'm going to move into kind of the main kind of subject matter here for today's talk, which is our decentralized content management system. And what I mean, most of you are probably familiar with the CMS. You've probably heard of WordPress. WordPress is a pretty popular content management system. WordPress runs centrally on servers on the cloud. What we're doing here is we want to move away from that to a decentralized model where you still have a content management system, but it runs on the blockchain. But it's still benefiting from a lot of the benefits of off-chain services, which is part of, you know, what I'm talking about here. So here's kind of the flow. You got your web browser in. Can you guys see the arrow, by the way? Can you see this arrow that I'm moving around, or no? Okay. So the web browser is where the client is, and let's say they go to bluzelle.com. So that's going to look up a CNAME record, and then it's going to go and try to resolve it with, say, Cloudflare or whoever your DNS is, and that's actually going to come up with many different endpoints, and that's going to go back to the browser. The browser will then go and refer to one of those IP addresses to access what's called our DCMS web access entry point. So it's going to use HTTP 1.1, the URL header, to figure out literally which website you're trying to access. That's what it's going to do here. And then it's going to go to Bluzelle here, the Bluzelle database node, to grab the module view controller code. It's going to grab that, return it back to the entry point. So any HTML5, JavaScript, PHP, that's then going to get executed. So that entry point can execute any sort of dynamic content, PHP, Node.js, whatever. And that's going to return back to the browser in number 8. The browser can now basically show the website. To the web user, they don't even know that they hit a decentralized endpoint. The user, now let's say the user fills out a form. So it's a writable action. That's number 9. It goes back to the entry point. The entry point is now going to execute any sort of dynamic code that needs to run in number 10. It's going to go back to the database node. It's going to write it. And finally, the access point is going to send back the data for the final rendered content based on whatever you wrote. So, you know, it can refer to content that, again, came from Bluzelle, but it could also use IPFS for any sort of content that's coming from there. So real quick here, the storage mechanism, there's really 2 places where your content is coming from. The model view controller would come from Bluzelle. So anything that's like images and large videos or any kind of large files would come from IPFS. So as I said, it works with existing browsers. That's a very big requirement. You don't want to add plugins or any sort of requirements for extensions. So no friction there. Anybody out there that's got a mobile or web browser on a desktop can use this. And it uses the existing DNS system, no special DNS. There's no dependence on a centralized entity. Obviously, that's a big point. Website uptime is not dependent on the existence of anyone, including Bluzelle. If Bluzelle were to go away tomorrow, this would continue to work. It's highly available. It automatically load balances, and it's censorship and attack resistant. And it uses a blockchain grade security for everything: the website content, server-side code, and application data. Now, let's get into the off-chain magic sauce. We're using the blockchain for its key value prop, which is storing data. And this is kind of the focus. We want to make sure that we're using the blockchain only for what it excels at. And to me, that's really about data storage. It's not about executing the logic, because a lot of stuff, especially like a CMS, you don't need to run everything on the blockchain, like say on Ethereum, where every node runs dApps. So all the application middleware processing is now moved from the nodes to the servers or even to your browser. So a lot of the stuff is now running in your browser and say JavaScript. So there's orders of magnitude of improvement in terms of scale, so that the dApps can run on the blockchain, and where every node isn't running the code. And our DCMS basically makes it practical now for dApps to run everywhere. You don't have the issue of scale that has been plaguing Ethereum for a long time. It's easy to author and browse, and for normal people to access.
So Neeraj, we have about 1 minute left.
Okay, perfect. I'm on pace. Centralization versus decentralization, real quick. This is a topic that I think is a theme for today. We all know we're in the blockchain space. Centralization is not ideal. It's bad for scaling, security, governance. There can be censorship. So we know that centralization is not great. That's why we invented the blockchain. That's why we're all here. But we also have realized, and that's why we have this talk, that decentralization is not 100% always applicable. You need to figure out where decentralization brings value and not blindly apply it everywhere. And as you probably know, there's been ICOs, there's been projects over the last few years that probably made the mistake of just applying decentralization anywhere as if it is some sort of magic Midas touch. It's not. So I believe that Bluzelle, especially with our DCMS, is an excellent example of balancing the right placement of decentralization with the blockchain, and then using centralization, like the off-chain application of web execution and our DCMS. So that's kind of it for the end of my slides. I know I kind of went through that pretty fast, but I think I'm on time, right, Alan?
Yep, looks good.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Neeraj. Certainly appreciate it.
All right,
so for our next guest is Colin Evran. He leads ecosystem at Protocol Labs, the leading research, development and deployment institution for network protocols. Protocol Labs sponsors projects and protocols, including IPFS, Filecoin, and libp2p, designed to fortify and democratize the web. Previously, Evran was the founder and CEO of Yard Club, a marketplace for underutilized industrial assets. Yard Club was acquired by Caterpillar in 2017. Evran began his career as a management consultant at McKinsey & Company and an associate at Bain Capital. He received an MBA at the Stanford Graduate School of Business and a BA from the Richard Ivey School of Business. So without further ado, let me just get this going here.
So Alan, before you play the video, so I'd like to let everyone know that if you have any questions about every project, so you can actually type it either in Zoom or in Theta.tv, the live chat, or in YouTube live, the chat on the right side. So we will collect all those questions and have a Q&A and panel discussion at the end. Yeah, Alan, that's all I want to say.
Okay, great. Go full screen here.
Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Colin, but my friends call me Proto Colin, and I help out with ecosystem development for the Filecoin project. I'm absolutely honored to participate in today's Web3 talk, and I really want to say a huge thank you up front to the entire NKN team, Bruce, Alan, and others for inviting us to participate and for organizing this awesome event. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there live today, but I'm delighted to present a quick overview of the Filecoin project and highlight some recent ecosystem momentum over video today. So first, I'll touch on why the Filecoin project exists. Filecoin's mission is to create a decentralized, efficient, and robust foundation for humanity's information. We truly believe that humanity's most valuable resource is information, and we're incredibly passionate about storing and protecting that valuable resource in an efficiently priced and distributed way. This means addressing some of the major problems of today's infrastructure, from decentralizing the cloud away from a small number of centralized providers to giving users full control over their data, turning data storage pricing into an efficient market, allowing the network to set prices rather than any corporate pricing departments, making storage verifiable, and lastly, optimizing the world's storage and putting the zettabytes of latent storage capacity around the world to use. What this means for miners is that we move from a world where a small number of cloud storage providers control how your data is stored and priced to a completely global open market where anyone can become a data storage provider and where the network itself can store content on every corner, bringing content right to the edge where it's needed the most by a set of clients. Now, there are two components to the Filecoin protocol: the storage market, which is on-chain, and the retrieval market, which is off-chain. In terms of the storage market, it's pretty simple. A client wants to store some data. Miners will compete with each other to win that storage contract and get the best pricing. And then once that contract is won, the Filecoin miner has to prove that they are storing the data properly by submitting some cryptographic proofs to the Filecoin chain. The off-chain market for Filecoin is called retrieval. And this basically means that when a client wants to retrieve a file, it will find a set of miners with the data and selects the fastest and most affordable one. As more people request that file, it becomes more popular and the data is spread to where the demand is actually growing. So access is optimized as the data flows worldwide. You can think of this as kind of a type of message propagation through gossip sub or something similar, but that happens completely off chain and leads to that kind of scalability. And so the end result is data going right to the edge. This could be a crowded city, it could be an apartment building, it could be a rural area where bandwidth might be not optimal as well. So that's a little bit about the Filecoin project overview. I'll walk through a couple slides on the business case for Filecoin and the advantages over traditional non-blockchain solutions. As we all know, the amount of data being stored in the cloud is increasing exponentially. There's about 20 zettabytes per year that's being stored in 2020, and that's meant to grow significantly. There isn't as much data storage capacity to keep up with that. So what Filecoin does is transforms the fundamental business case and cost structure for what it means to be a data storage provider in 2020. As you can see, there's a lot that a data storage provider needs to provide in today's marketplace. But what Filecoin allows that data storage provider to do is to focus on the core business backend, a subset of the most valuable tasks that a data storage provider can do, and offloads the business front end to the Filecoin network itself, which is basically an aggregation of data storage providers all over the world. It's kind of similar to the powerful service Airbnb storage network provides for individual homeowners to allow them to compete with larger hotels chains like Hilton or Marriott. So what that really means is that it takes a market with a few dominant data storage providers and allows all sorts of data storage providers to be able to compete effectively with the scale, reliability, and price efficiency of the larger players. And finally, what that really truly allows is that it allows anyone from a small mining rig, perhaps in your apartment, to an advanced data center to plug into the network and together provide a robust new foundation for humanity's information, our ultimate goal. So that's a little bit about the business case for Filecoin. I want to highlight a few things on the momentum of our current testnet. We have over 200 repos across the core protocol, Filecoin proofs, developer tooling, and APIs, and products and applications built on top of it. We have 4 implementations of the Filecoin protocol in Rust, C++, and Go. We have over 1,240 cumulative open source contributors that have contributed to the Filecoin repos and to the Filecoin protocol outside of the Filecoin team itself. And that's even growing into June and July in the coming months ahead. Our current testnet, which is non-incentivized just yet, has actually garnered over 12 petabytes of information, which we believe can store basically all of Web3's data already before incentivization kicks in. And that represents over 1,000 active miners, many of which have really large data centers that they've showcased for the world on their Twitter accounts and social media. And just a few of which we're just have submitted logos, showcasing their testnet contributions to date. And so this is a collection of kind of the larger companies that are participating in the testnet today. And of course, we have global Filecoin communities all over the world that are still doing meetups, both virtually and in person when it's safe. I'll highlight two areas where you can actually get involved in today's testnet. The first of which is HackFS. This is a month-long hackathon where hundreds of developers will bond together, form teams, and build substantial applications on top of Filecoin. That kicks off in just a few days on July 6th, so please apply. There's already been hundreds of applications, and we're excited to kick this off. And two is the Filecoin testnet incentives. This kicks off on January 20th, and this will be a series of competitions from miners all over the world to win up to 4 million Filecoin in testnet incentives, which is very substantial. So please participate and be included there as well. Now, I'll race through a range of use cases that Filecoin hopes to support on mainnet launch. The first of which is decentralized applications. And we're very fortunate that the IPFS ecosystem is absolutely flourishing, growing about 10x from its previous high watermark last year. There's all sorts of applications across a whole bunch of categories, many of which require a persistent storage layer that a service like Filecoin would make really good use of. And so we're making it very easy for these applications to integrate with Filecoin in very meaningful ways. I'll highlight just 3 of those applications that are already integrating with Filecoin right now. First of which is Textile. They're building a solution called PowerGate, which is kind of the Swiss Army knife for developers on Filecoin. You can think of it as an easy-to-use interface to store and retrieve data from Filecoin, and it also exposes a really intuitive developer API. The next is called Fleek, which is adding Filecoin support for its file storage solution that currently makes it easy to upload, store, and fetch files from IPFS in a performant and familiar way. And finally, Haven and OpenBazaar, who have built a free online decentralized eBay-style marketplace that is built on top of IPFS. They're integrating Filecoin as a payment mechanism into their marketplace. Next, early use case is large data sets. So one application I'd like to highlight here is Starling, which we've collaborated with a number of dev shops to kind of build this, which basically moves very large archival data sets that need to be verifiable onto Filecoin. We have a couple of these examples that we're going to be showcasing over the coming months. We've also launched Filecoin Discover, which is a tool to discover culturally important data sets that we're storing on the Filecoin network. And these will all be available at launch, from the Ethereum blockchain to really core scientific data to many, many other data sets that we think are very culturally relevant. And finally, I'd like to highlight just a variety of other use cases that are already integrating with Filecoin, from storing and backing up all of Web3's data to video publishing. There are a number of applications that are already transcoding and streaming on Filecoin in the coming months, to social media dApps, to games and game distribution platforms, to storing virtual world data, which are significantly large files, to developer assets like package managers, registries, storing and distributing containers, et cetera. So far, we've actually granted 3 waves of about 45 dev grants, totaling $1.5 million. And the deadline for wave 4 actually happens in just a few days on July 1st. So please check out that link if you're interested to apply for a dev grant. Now, looking forward, I'll just highlight that we are here making a transition from the internet to Web 1 to Web 2 to what we all really believe in this room, which is Web 3, a system where we can read and write with applications, but have trust embedded in that and verifiability embedded in that ecosystem. And while Web 3 has been around for about a decade or so, what I truly believe and I'm passionate about is accelerating the transition from Web 2 to Web 3. We contributed in some ways with Filecoin and IPFS, but there are so many other applications and protocols around the room today and in the audience that are accelerating that transition. And if we can get that UX right and make that Web 3 compelling enough where it's just an obvious switch from Web 2 to Web 3, I think that will serve all of our hopes and dreams that we're all striving towards in this particular room today. So I want to say a really big thank you for being invited to this conference, to the organizers for putting this all together, and to the many folks in this room that are contributing to accelerating that transition from Web 2 to Web 3. Whether you're working on Filecoin or one of the other many protocols represented here, you're the future of Web 3. And I thank you for your, in a truly heartfelt way, for your contributions and for attracting, really enthusiastic folks like myself into the space to make that happen. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Evran. Okay, so for our next speaker, we have Raullen Chai. So Raullen Chai is a co-founder of IoTeX, a privacy-focused blockchain platform for the Internet of Trusted Things. Raullen received his PhD in cryptography at the University of Waterloo, where his research focused on lightweight ciphers for connected devices. After his PhD, Raullen spent 5+ years leading teams at Google and Uber as a tech lead and head of cryptography R&D, respectively. In 2017, Raullen founded IoTeX together with 2 other co-founders to transform the way we interact with IoT devices. So without further ado, Raullen Chai.
Thanks for having me. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, since we already have 10 minutes, I'm just cutting to the street. So starting from the problem we are trying to solve, although I'm coming from an infra background, but I know solving a real world problem actually is very valuable. So the problems we are trying to solve. So we are surrounded by billions of Internet of connected and intelligent devices, which are observing and recording us all the time. And learning information about ourselves that gets, collected, owned, and used, not by ourselves, but by corporate intermediates like Google, Amazon, the big ones, or maybe some manufacturers, And the dream of this smart, safe, efficient future is basically threatened by this intrusive surveillance and ubiquitous advertising almost everywhere. And we need a new paradigm if we want to grow the IoT devices from billions to hundreds of billions. Apparently, there is a gap, right? So it's not easy. There is a gap between users' expectation and the manufacturer's capability. So users, of course, they want something, trust and private, and also innovative and convenient to use, right? But on the other side, the device manufacturers, like we interviewed with probably 100 each of them, most of them have this a long tail device manufacturers. So they cannot do this trust and privacy because they don't have the technology. They don't understand the internet, let alone Web 3.0, right? So they cannot do a too cutting edge stuff, but they know how to make hardware awesome. So there's a huge gap between user and manufacturer, and that's where IoTeX platform gets fitting. So simply put, IoTeX is a platform to enable Internet of Trust Things. It just composed of many layers. I'm going to talk about this later. But the entire purpose is we are going to help the device manufacturers to convert what they already have, an Internet of smart devices, into something called Internet of Trusted devices, and to make users happy and to let the number of devices grow as time goes by. So as you can tell, this platform is composed of mostly 3 layers. Sitting on the ground is the blockchain infrastructure, which is basically what we built from scratch from 2017 Q4 to actually 2019 Q3-ish. So we use almost two years to build this blockchain from scratch. We have our in-house design of the consensus. We have smart contracts. And for now, this blockchain has been running in production for almost 1 year, and processing over 5 million transactions running by 70+ delegates globally. So it's running pretty smooth. So this part is done, and we are working on the middleware. So that's where we are right now. So first we have this decentralized identity layer for devices and users, which is basically leveraging the blockchain's capability to make everything decentralized. So this part is almost there. And then sitting on the identity layer, we do have this provider agnostic storage layer, which we would do work with Filecoin, IPFS, and Bluzelle and Storj potentially. And also some user wants AWS, GCP, that's fine too. So we just want to integrate with different storage providers to let user have their choice to choose, where to put the data. And even on top of this one, we do have like a confidential computing layer. We are working like internally. The idea is very simple. Once user has encrypted data stored, for example, on Bluzelle, then there must be a way like a user without compromising the privacy can compute something out of this encrypted data. So that's where this confidential computing is actually kicking in. And of course, like a third layer is the onboarding layer. It's basically composed of SDK, API, dashboard tools, everything, to interfacing with users, devices, and applications. So yeah, so that's like a platform is huge. It's beautiful, right? We already have like the Linux part of its platform ready, and we just cannot wait, to really focus on one vertical and try to solve the problem we promised. So that's where we get started in the camera space, which basically starting from last year. So the problem here is a very, very obvious. Like everybody have a home camera and everybody have like a privacy and security concerns. Privacy meaning like I'm not sure if Google is watching me because I'm using NKN at my home. So he knows me better even than myself, right? So security concern means because the entire account system is actually sitting on top of like a centralized account system. So if someone get my password, someone like this system have some bug, maybe have some data breach, so other people can actually log into my home camera and see what I'm doing right now, which is very scary. So we actually partner with like a hardware manufacturer, as we promised, and use the IoTeX platform and IoTeX technology, everything put together. And we have this thing called UCAN, which is the world's first truly private home security camera, which was debuted early this year in the CES, which was the CES Innovation Award. This UCAN is first like a camera, right? So it has all the cool features a camera could possibly have, like 1020 like HD video. It can rotate, so it has a full like a 360-degree coverage, motion detection, night vision, two-way speak, all the fancy stuff it has. On top of that, it also has like the entire concept we do have is the same, very similar as a Web 3.0 concept. Like a camera and user, they have their own identity, and all the data actually goes out of the camera, captured by the camera, is actually encrypted by that key, meaning like any of the user can have access to the data. It's the same idea as you have the private key, you have your Bitcoin, right? So now you have your private key, you have your camera data, and no one else, can read into your data. And then on top of this, like encrypted data, then we can do some very simple like confidential computing to generate like a face detection, object detection, so on and so forth. So it's a very innovative product. And although it has all these cool tech features, like I was telling my team, like the design principle for this one is to make my grandma can use it, right? Like people has zero knowledge about blockchain, about privacy, about DID, confidential computing, can use this camera like seamlessly. So that's our like a starting point. So as you can tell, like the interface here is pretty user friendly. Like it's not too different from like a normal like a camera app. Everybody can just click and use this one, but the underlying infrastructure is huge, right? So that's basically like the entire picture about UCAN. So so UCAN is real. So we have opened like the pre-order, like the first 3 days we sold out like 100 more. So this is just start, and we are doing like a beta testing in 200 plus California homes. So they are coming from very different background. Artists, programmers, non-tech people. Very mixed crowd, and the general feedback is very good. And we are iterating the product based on this feedbacks from people. And also we got lots of like mainstream media coverage. Anyway, yeah, if you're interested to take a look into UCAN, feel free to pre-order here. But like one step back, like we are still like a platform company. So UCAN is just the first concrete product we're having, for people to actually test this technology. So if you want to build something on top of IoTeX, feel free to take a look here in the docs.iotex.io, and we have like a full treatment for you. Yeah, so I think that's all about my presentation. We definitely have like the second, third, and fourth, like the IoT smart devices in the pipeline that's going to be converted to like the similar, into the similar fashion of UCAN. And stay tuned for more news about us. Thank you all.
Great, thanks, Raullen. And under time too, which is awesome. So our next let me see, our next speaker today is Yilun Zhang. He is the co-founder and CTO of NKN, a blockchain-powered decentralized data transmission network. On the research track, Yilun received a PhD degree in physics from University of California, San Diego, where he conducted research in computational neuroscience and distributed information processing systems, which turned out to be the mathematical foundation of the Mocha consensus algorithm proposed by NKN. He also received a BS degree in physics from Peking University on the engineering track. Yilun started programming since high school and has been a full stack engineer for many years before co-founding NKN. Please welcome Yilun Zhang.
Hello, everyone. Hey, Alan, can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Oh, there it is.
There we go.
Okay. The previous three speakers set a very high bar about the presentation, so I will also try my best. So hello, everyone. My name is Yilun, the co-founder and CTO of NKN, short for New Kind of Network. So today I'm going to give you a brief introduction of what NKN does, what you can do with NKN, and our current status. So if you're trying to build application today, there are three essential resources that you might need: the compute, the storage, and the network. So there are quite a few projects they focus on the storage part, but NKN is purely focusing on the network part by providing a decentralized network as a service. So this network is a large market already and ready for quite many players. So we launched our mainnet a year ago. After 1 year of growth, we now have over 20,000 full nodes globally. So those are all full consensus nodes participating in consensus, store a copy of ledger, relaying data to earn mining reward, and have a public IP address. And most importantly, this is a very decentralized network. As a team, we only own and run less than 1% of all these nodes. The rest are all run and managed by community. So by far, it is the world's largest blockchain network in terms of the number of consensus nodes. So here is a live map of the nodes globally, and it's a little bit outdated. Currently, we have more nodes than this. So the NKN full consensus node is very lightweighted. It only consumes tiny amount of CPU and RAM. This is thanks to our extremely scalable consensus algorithm, the majority vote zero automata, or also known as MOCA. So it is inspired by Dr. Stephen Wolfram's new kind of science, which is, by the way, how we got our project name. So the idea is to use neighbor-only communication to reach global consensus. As a result, it can achieve logarithm complexity with respect to the number of nodes in the network. It means that consensus algorithm is extremely scalable. So the current NKN code without any modification can scale to billions of nodes easily without any problem or eating up like notable resources. So on the off-chain part, the NKN network is a decentralized data transmission network. So basically, when an NKN client wants to send some data to another NKN client, they both connected to the NKN node network and ask the node to relay the data for them. So typically, because the data will only go through one or a few nodes in the network. So that means the more nodes we have in the network, the more data it can transmit at the same time, or technically called the higher aggregated throughput it has. So that means the more nodes, the better, the more powerful the network. That's why we care about how large the network is. And that's one of the most beautiful things about off-chain system. So we have NKN network can do off-chain data transmission. It also has on-chain transaction part. They both are important components of the system. So the off-chain by relaying data off-chain, the miner can use proof of relay to earn mining reward, or use NanoPay to get payment directly from users through the payment channel. And on the other side, the on-chain transaction provide some of the core functions to the off-chain data transmission, such as subscribe and the PubSub, and also the name service. So far we have been talking about the blockchain infrastructure, which is the technology foundation and the infrastructure of the system, or we call it NKN 1.0. But this is not enough. We actually want to go further, to go beyond blockchain, to expand to real world use case and ramping up commercial revenue. because as we know, the world outside blockchain is much, much larger and has a great market. So that's why we created something, we come up with something called NKN 2.0. So you can think of it as we provide network as a service for everyone, every company, not just the blockchain world or decentralized world, but every company who needs communication. So if you think of the NKN 2.0 as like a tree, the root is definitely our crowdsourced node and network, which is a foundation of everything else. Above that, we have we can provide network as a service, which is the trunk of the tree. And on top of that, we have our branches, which is the data right and CDN platform services that we will talk next. And outside, we have the fruit, which is the end user can use applications like the DChat and mobile or something else. They may not even realize it has NKN in it, but it's usable directly. It's directly accessible to end users. The data right is one of the core services that NKN provides. So it is a decentralized communication suite. You can think of it as Uber for client-to-client communication. So basically, when a client wants to send some or receive some data from another client, they don't need to build their own server and do all those kind of work and pay for those service, pay for those VPS. So now they just to embed NKN SDK inside their client. And now their client can send and receive data, communicate with other clients very smoothly, very fast, and very reliably. So there are a few advantages of using data right. The first is performance. So because we are able to aggregate multiple concurrent paths, where it is able to get a much higher throughput than just default route or using the single path connection. And also reliability. So there are over 20,000 nodes in the network, but they are all running the same code. There's no single one that that is more important or less important than other nodes. So there's absolutely no single point of failure. This is one of the great advantages as being a decentralized system. And also the data sent through data right is very private and secure because we use like a same public key as decentralized identity, and we use it for both routing and encryption. So that means all that data sent through data right is end-to-end encrypted, and there's absolutely no third party in the world that can decrypt or modify the data sent through data right. So data right can be used in a lot of use cases as long as the communication is needed. So one of the core features of data right is multi-path aggregation. So when the NKN client wants to send some data to another NKN client, he can ask multiple different nodes to relay the data for them and for him. And the data will be relayed and goes through multiple independent and different paths. And typically, when you in the internet, the bandwidth bottleneck is neither on the sender side nor on the receiver side, but it's something in the middle. So by utilizing multiple independent and concurrent paths, we can get a much higher bandwidth or aggregated throughput than just using one of them. And the sender can also choose to send duplicate data among all these different paths to greatly enhance the reliability or lower the latency. So a lot of different applications can be built on top of data right. Here are a few early examples. For example, the N-Mobile or the DChat is a decentralized instant messenger using NKN to send and receive message. And it's very fast and secure, and we use it internally for our discussion and communication. NFTP is a decentralized web app that lets you send and receive data without any server security. And Nshell is a browser plugin that lets you to control your node, even if the node does not have a public IP address or does not have any port open. We are already using it for all our nodes management. And data right is still pretty young, and we are say its community growing, and we will see more applications coming in the future.
So we've got about a minute or so left.
Okay. Another important service we provide is a CDN, the content delivery network. Because NKN has so many points of presence in worldwide, it is very suitable for a CDN. So we have a self-service portal that's for individual users to try it out, and also for commercial and enterprise users. We have signed quite a few commercial contracts. The most well-known one is Jieyi, one of China's most largest video content provider with over 100 million subscribers. We have been one of the CDN providers for quite a few months, and the traffic is ramping up pretty fast. So far we have been talking about the service that NKN can provide, but also this cannot be done without the help of miners. So we are also releasing the NKN Commercial, which is our all-in-one mining software that the miner can run a full node in it and a few different other services that can earn you NKN tokens. So we are at the end of the presentation, and here is a brief summary. So we have been talking about NKN 1.0 or the blockchain infrastructure. It has a very scalable consensus algorithm and decentralized data transmission network as off-chain functions, and use proof of relay and nanopay to get the tokens. And also we have NKN 2.0, which provide networks as a service to beyond the blockchain. Two important platforms we provide is DataRide and NCDN. For end users, people can start to use DataRide and NCDN power applications now. And for developers, they can use DataRide and NCDN to build their own applications. And for miners, we have the all-in-one mining software, NKN Commercial, that lets you run all these services in addition to just mining the NKN token. And that's it. Thanks everyone for your time.
Awesome, thanks, Yilun. So our next speaker here today is Kevin Leffew, is a partner manager and solution architect at Storj Labs. Kevin guides the customer teams of executives, developers, and DevOps managers to connect their solutions to Tardigrade, Storj's decentralized cloud storage service. Through his work with Tardigrade users and partners, Kevin helps companies reduce their cloud storage spending while also building more resilient, performant, and disaster-proof cloud architectures. Kevin is specifically focused on multi-cloud architectures and reducing the global recovery time for large data sets and backups. Please help us welcome Kevin Leffew.
Hello, everybody. Hi, Alan. Thank you for the introduction. Really excited to be here presenting at the Web3 Summit. And I'm excited to talk about the Tardigrade developer platform today, including some of the early use cases and wins that we've seen in enabling developers building on the decentralized cloud. So I'll start with some background on Storj Labs and what our mission is as a company. Our goal as a company is to build the world's largest and most secure, performant, and resilient cloud storage service without owning or operating a data center. What that really means is that we enable anybody to be the cloud by monetizing their excess hard drive capacity for both storage and bandwidth. So if anybody has any extra space, Storj is a way to monetize that. Tardigrade is a developer tool that's built on top of the Storj network that enables developers to easily store, retrieve, and access data, as well as share it on the Storj network. We'll get into kind of what that is here in just a second. Let's skip ahead. So how does Tardigrade work? On Tardigrade, all data is encrypted client side. It's then segmented or broken into pieces. Each of those pieces are erasure coded, which means that they're broken up, in our case, into 80 pieces, of which any 30 of the 80 pieces are needed to reconstitute the file. What that means is that you need 51 plus nodes that have different owners, different internet service providers that are different geographic parts of the world to go to offline simultaneously. Part of what we measure is statistical uncorrelation. So we look for differences in those areas to optimize the distribution of the data on the network. So that's kind of how data gets uploaded and stored. For kind of a more advanced overview here, when you upload a file, you basically ping a satellite. The satellite tells you where to upload that file. The file's encrypted, erasure coded, and streamed in parallel to all of those nodes. When you retrieve it, you get a receipt of where those pieces are currently held, and you stream it in parallel. What's really exciting about this process is that there's no kind of Cadelia discover process. Things are really quick, and we've actually seen an increase in recovery time globally for large data sets versus like single region AWS availability zones. And so that's something that we're pretty excited to talk about and share. Today, I'm going to keep the presentation really simple. I kind of, in the vein of kind of focusing on developers, I wanted to talk about how you can upgrade your stack using the Tardigrade network today. And all of these integrations are available in our documentation at documentation.tardigrade.io. So first off, we have an integration that enables you to back up any of your Maria, MySQL, InfluxDB time series, or MongoDB DocumentDB databases. And so what's really interesting is with Tardigrade, your backups are globally distributed, they're more resilient, they're more secure. and really easy to kind of integrate with kind of existing S3 protocol backups. And by doing so, you can reduce your cloud storage bill in half. And so really important note is that Tardigrade is half the price of kind of the leading cloud service providers like Amazon, Google, and Microsoft on both storage and bandwidth. And so for developers, it's easy to use, it's S3 compatible, and just by switching to the decentralized cloud, not only do you get the benefits of resiliency, security, and global performance, but you're able to cut your cloud storage bill in half or even more. And so one of the kind of recent announcements that I wanted to touch on was a really cool integration into MongoDB's Ops Manager. And so there's a great blog post on MongoDB's website that details basically how to use this integration. But essentially this integration enables you to schedule MongoDB backups and migrations easily with the decentralized cloud. And so if you're using MongoDB and you're looking to kind of upgrade your disaster prevention and migration strategy, this is a really great integration that we're really excited to partner directly with MongoDB around. We also recently launched a Kubernetes backup tool using Valero, which is a VMware sponsored open source project. And so obviously, Kubernetes powers majority of kind of modern applications. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to create kind of a universal plane for backing up your Kubernetes data that's uncorrelated with Google Cloud, Amazon, or Microsoft. And so what that means is if you're running, say, in GCP today, and you back up to the decentralized cloud, you can really quickly rehydrate all of your Kubernetes object data as well as persistent volumes and bring that cluster back to life in any other compute environment, whether that might be a cloud or a private compute environment, anywhere in the world at the snap of a finger. And so we're really excited to kind of build out a kind of a better Kubernetes strategy that enables enterprises to be kind of more secure from a multi-cloud architecture perspective without relying on a single provider, which as kind of decentralized enthusiasts, we all know what the risk of relying on a single provider is. We also launched a native integration with Arclone. Arclone is an extremely popular developer tool that enables you to map file systems and sync file systems between cloud storage services. And so Arclone recently launched a native upstream pull request, which included tardigrade as an option for object storage. And so what this means is that for system admins that are leveraging large data sets across multiple storage environments, Arclone is a really great tool for synchronization. So you can easily migrate, and kind of the how-to there is located on our website. A lot of open source applications actually leverage Arclone today, including Restic. Restic is a Go program that dedupes and schedules backups, making backups really easy from kind of a sysadmin perspective. And obviously all the benefits of tardigrade in the decentralized cloud get kind of looped into an easy kind of enterprise-friendly developer tool. We also have a direct integration with Duplicati, an open source GUI-based backup tool. And so if you're maybe not as sophisticated with the command line, Duplicati makes it really easy to do system-wide backups of your disks across virtual machines or any kind of live OS. Duplicati compresses data and makes kind of the overall volume of data that you're storing less. So it can even further your savings on backups for data recovery and disaster prevention. Another really key partnership announcement recently that was featured in Computer Weekly as well as a number of other outlets, was a native application that we launched with QNAP. This application enables you to easily back up your QNAP NAS to the decentralized cloud. And so all of your personal videos, movies, et cetera, are securely backed up to tardigrade. What's really notable is that this actually gives you the ability to also monetize your excess capacity. And so with this simple one-click application that anybody can download, you can both back up your entire network-attached storage array to the decentralized cloud, as well as monetize your excess capacity, which kind of brings both the supply and the demand into kind of one unified experience. So tardigrade as a platform is really built by developers for developers. And so when we're looking for partners, we obviously kind of have a strategy that's been pretty widely covered around open source monetization. And a lot of our open source partners partake in this. And so if you're developing open source software that needs to store data on behalf of users, and you store that data on tardigrade instead of a centralized cloud provider, we have a program that enables us to basically attribute the amount of volume via a connector, and then directly monetize you for any data that you bring to the decentralized cloud as an open source developer. We think that this is a really kind of disruptive new open source monetization strategy that exists kind of outside of the realm of the open core model or the OEM bundling model or something like advertising. And so we're really excited to see the decentralized cloud kind of marry the open source ecosystem and develop new pathways for open source monetization. And so just kind of moving forward about the developer experience, tardigrade's intuitive, it's easy, it's familiar, and so you don't have to download, and kind of become familiar with the new file system or a new way of storing data. Everything's kind of familiar if you're a developer using other platforms. You get the benefits in terms of economics, performance, and privacy around the decentralized cloud. And so you can create an account, generate an API key in 3 clicks, and you're on your way. We've drop-in S3 compatibilities we touched on in the past, and so if you're using even the Amazon CLI, you can basically reconfigure the Amazon CLI to talk to the decentralized cloud, which is always kind of a fun trick and a fun demo. But the S3 compatibility feature is something that we think really differentiates us from competitors and makes us really easy to use from a developer standpoint. So I wanted to kind of keep the presentation quick today. Really what I want to do is spark interest in kind of the developers here around tardigrade and around some of our enterprise validation and recent wins. We offer a service level agreement that's on par with AWS with the durability and the availability of data through tardigrade, through that brand. And so if you're interested in developing on the platform, please reach out, especially as the world kind of migrates to a remote first type of environment. We're happy to kind of support you. We think that the distributed cloud is purpose built for the distributed workforce, and we're excited to work with companies that want to help realize our vision of the decentralized cloud. So thanks again, Alan. Thanks again, NKN. And again, feel free to check out tardigrade.io and learn how you can store data on the decentralized cloud today.
Great. Thanks, Kevin. That was great. All right. The last but not least on our guest speakers today is Jieyi Long. So Jieyi Long is the CTO co-founder of Theta Labs Incorporated. He's in charge of the technology research and oversees the day-to-day product development for the Theta network. Prior to founding Theta Labs, he received the BS degree in microelectronics from Peking University in Beijing, China. He also received the PhD degree in computer engineering from Northwestern University, that's also my alma mater, where he conducted research in mathematical modeling and algorithms for large-scale electronic systems optimization, many of which are finding their way into the Theta network. So please help us welcome Jieyi Long.
Hey, thanks, Alan, for the introduction. I would like to thank you, everyone, to stay online with us right till the end of the webinar. And also, Alan, if you can help to bring up my slides, would be very helpful
right now.
Yeah.
Let's see.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Alan. So today I'll briefly talk about the Theta network, and I will discuss how we can potentially disrupt the video streaming industry with an on-chain and off-chain hybrid solution. So Alan, if you can scroll back to the previous slide.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. So next slide, please. Okay. So let's start with the landscape of today's video streaming industry. The image on the right side of the slide shows the projected growth of the global IP traffic from 16 to 21, estimated by Cisco. It is projected that by the end of next year, more than 2/3 of the internet data are video data, which could amount to hundreds of exabytes. And not just by this statistics, I think anecdotally, most of us would agree that we are heavier and heavier user of online videos, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic situation, where many of us are trapped at home, right? In fact, I guess at this very moment, so everyone is attending this seminar is watching through online video on a certain shape or form, right? Be it on Theta.tv or YouTube Live or through Zoom. However, despite of this massive growth, there are many growing pains. First is the high cost associated with the stream delivery. So in fact, I think this is one of the biggest cost item of the major video platforms. Secondly, video platforms don't typically reward users for their attention. Viewers might be forced to watch ads which they don't want to, but they receive no reward for the time they spent, and leading to a suboptimal user experience. And finally, and most importantly, content creators are not rewarded fairly. The platform takes significant cuts from the content creators' earnings, but provides no transparency. So for example, for streamers that runs in ad-supported streams, the video platform might arbitrarily give them the number of the ad deliver, right? Ad impression deliver throughout the months, but without any proof. And so the streamers have no way to actually verify that he or she actually get the full earning amount. So at Theta Labs, we believe that this $1 trillion video industry is ripe for disruption. And today we'll discuss how Theta can potentially be the disruptor by providing a on-chain, off-chain hybrid solution. So next slide, please. Thanks. So this slide shows how Theta solves this growing pains. So Theta constructs a sharing economy, so which creates a community sharing bandwidth with other peers. Just think of Theta as Uber or Airbnb, but just for the access bandwidth. As an example of how Theta works, just imagine you're watching the NBA final games, right? Since it is a popular content, so as you watch a game, your neighbor will probably also watch the same stream as well. So, and since you guys are consuming the same content, why bother to pull all the stream data from the CDN directly, right? So instead, you can pull the stream and then your neighbor can pull from you. So this way, the CDN bandwidth usage can be reduced significantly. So in fact, in our production stream, so 40% to 60% of the video data can be offloaded. And then so this solved the first pain point. Next slide, please. The second and third pain point revolves around the reward for the viewers and the content creators. This can be effectively resolved through Theta's incentive structure. As the viewers share the video stream with other viewers using the unused bandwidth, they can help reduce the student cost for the video platform. Hence, they should be rewarded for their contribution. So in our Theta economy, the platform rewards the viewer with a Theta Fuel token for the bandwidth they share. Thus, as the viewer watching the stream, they're earning tokens with economic values, right? This addresses the second pain point. And for the with the reward tokens, the viewer can do on-chain virtual gifting directly without the platform taking a cut. In addition, the Theta blockchain introduces a special mechanism we call split contract, so that during a live stream, it can reward a content creator in real time proportional to his viewership. So this provides a more fair avenue to reward the content creators. And we will dive into more details later in this presentation. Next slide, please. So all this sounds great in theory, right? But as we implemented the Theta network, we have to address a set of non-trivial technical challenges in order to resolve the pain points. This slide provides a brief overview of the technical challenges and touch upon how we address these hurdles using a hybrid of on-chain and off-chain techniques. First, to effectively reduce the CDN bandwidth usage, the network needs to have the capability to support ultra-high throughput data delivery in real time in order to potentially support millions or even tens of millions of concurrent viewers. So we achieve this by a topology consisting of viewers watching a game in real time and some dedicated caching nodes. Secondly, so with the high number of concurrent viewers, the Theta blockchain needs to support high transactional throughput for this Theta Fuel token reward. And we solve this with a unique off-chain payment pool construct. And finally, transparent creator reward requires provability and auditability. And we can achieve this desired properties through direct on-chain virtual gifting and a specialized smart contract we call split contract. We designed specifically for the video streaming use cases. So next, I will dive into the more details of each of these buckets. Next slide, please. Yeah. So this slide shows how the Theta network works, right, to address the first challenge, which is the ultra-high throughput real-time data delivery problem. So in addition to direct video sharing between the viewers watching the stream simultaneously, The Theta network also have a set of almost 3,000 dedicated edge cachers spreading around the world, operated by our very active community. They form the backbone of the delivery network, and because they are closer to the end viewers than the CDN data centers, they can provide better coverage for the viewers around the world. Also, in addition to these edge cacher nodes, we also have more than 1,000 blockchain consensus nodes, right? So this nodes runs the consensus protocol, and they're operated by a wide variety of different vendors, right? Including enterprise validators like Google, like Samsung, and also like blockchain, like Binance, like big exchanges. And more importantly, a lot of this node are also operating by our community members, right, on their personal laptop, their personal computers. So they work together and then participate in this full consensus to help us to secure the blockchain, to secure the on-chain component. Next slide, please. This slide provides a little bit more technical detail on how the edge cachers and the viewers forms a unified network. I want to note that the CDN is still in the picture as a fallback mechanism, just in case the content is not fine in the neighboring nodes, right? And the peers, the viewers and the edge cacher, they are paired together by a set of tracker servers, which can be co-located with edge cachers, or they can be independent run by the community or the video platform. So together, all these nodes form a highly efficient network for peer-to-peer data delivery, and is able to scale itself to adapt to a ever-growing user base. Therefore, we can see that the challenge of high throughput data delivery can be addressed by our Theta network. Next slide, please. Now that we have an on-chain, off-chain network that can deliver video data to the needed users, our next task is to reward the bandwidth sharing in real time. So the major challenge here is transactional throughput. As many of you might be aware, traditional blockchain like Bitcoin and Ethereum can only support a very limited transactional throughput. Like even with the latest proof-of-stake based protocols, many of the chains can support an order of only like 1,000 transactions per second on chain, right? So in order to support the large concurrent viewers and so the large concurrent payment, when we designed the Theta blockchain, we decided to provide a native support for off-chain micropayments. In particular, we noticed that the traditional payment channels can only support payments between two parties, while the stream sharing could involve multiple parties, right? Because one viewer, he can potentially share a stream with multiple peers. So thus we designed a micropayment pool concept, leveraging the specialty of digital data, and which enables many-to-one off-chain payment and can effectively prevent double spending. So, but due to the time limit, we don't have the time to go through the nuts and bolts of the payment protocol, but you can find more details on the Medium post provided on this slide. Next slide, please. So this slide shows that provides some example on what the viewer can do right after they earn the Theta token, Theta View token by sharing their bandwidth. So they can use it for discounted purchase, right? For example, some kind of movie here. They can use it to disable ads, right? This will increase engagement and the revenue of the platform as well. So this is definitely a win-win situation, right, for the platform and its users. Next slide, please. Now let's get to the third pain point and see how Theta can provide a more transparent reward to the content creators. So Theta achieved this too, this goal through two mechanisms with on-chain cryptographic proofs. So first, Theta provides support direct donation to the content creators through on-chain transactions, right? The left image is actually an example of how a Theta View donation can be done on Theta.tv. And secondly, Theta implemented a unique specialized smart contract we call the split contract, so that before a stream starts, the content creator or the streamer, he or she can specify a split percentage, right? For example, say 25%, such that each TView, the platform review to the user for bandwidth sharing, 0.25 of the TView will go to the content creator, such that the split contract actually provides a transparent and auditable mechanism for the content creators to be rewarded based on his or her viewership, right? So because the more viewers he or she has, the more data will be shared among the viewers, and hence more data field will be split to him or her, right? So all this and very importantly, all of this reward are auditable on chain, so which address the transparency issue. So next slide, please.
Yeah, we have about 1 minute left.
Okay, exactly. So I'm coming to my conclusion slide. So so this final slide concludes my talk. So I think in this short presentation, we overview the whole video streaming industry, and then we touch upon his growing pains, right? And then we spend the remainder of time and to talk about how Theta can actually solve all these pains, like through an on-chain and off-chain hybrid solution. So so I want to thank you everyone here to tune into the talk, and I would like to return the mic to Alan for the Q&A session.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Sure. Let's see. So so we wanted to get a chance to, because we have a bunch of smart people in the room, to ask some questions and be able to do that. So if you want to ask questions, you can do so on, as Yilun mentioned before, on Theta, on our YouTube channel, or if you're on our webinar, you can use the Q&A function that's within Zoom to do so. So we have a couple of pre-prepared questions first, so let's start with those, and then as we get new questions in, we'll be able to add to that, which I think will be fun. So so first of all, let's start out with this one, and I'm gonna actually start with Neeraj, because I think this is kind of started even in some of our conversations as we were pre-preparing for this webinar, that I thought was very relevant for this discussion. So first one is, sometimes 100% decentralization is not economically viable or practical. Where do you see the need for hybrid solutions where centralization is used in certain areas, working in tandem with decentralized technology?
Oh, thanks for that, Alan. So that's actually a great question. It's something kind of dear to my heart. I touched on it a little bit in my presentation earlier. So, you know, it's really for me about onboarding and bringing on the masses in a practical way to the crypto kind of community, and allowing all these wonderful projects to really get the kind of critical mass that we want, right? That's really how we're going to get success. We need commercial success. You know, at Bluzelle, we don't want to be limited to just the crypto community. We want, for example, people outside in the general population, the gaming industry, enterprise, to be able to use Bluzelle. And that means that, and I'll give a quick example, payments. It's not really practical for us to just expect people to go and acquire Bluzelle tokens from an exchange, get a crypto wallet, and be able to do all those things just to use a database. We're just not going to get developers. So here's an example where we would have to partner with, like, you know, some sort of traditional payment company. It might be a PayPal, it might be some sort of other billing system, obviously centralized. And this would tie into the traditional sort of payment invoicing methodologies or systems that are already out there, so that regular customers can use our product. So this just goes into the fact that it's just not practical, if you want commercial success in today's day and time, to stick to a totally decentralized system, and payments is one of them. And these are the compromises you're making. I think that with regards to our DCMS, that's another one. I mean, Ethereum is fantastic for smart contracts in certain cases, but obviously, as I gave an example, there's a lot of cases where you literally do not want to decentralize. You want it to be running in very limited places. And that's really how you're going to get the success. I sincerely hope that someday in the near term, everyone is using Bitcoin or using Bluzelle or whatever other crypto tokens are out there. And that's the only way that people earn their salary, pay their taxes, and go out to McDonald's. But we're not there yet, folks. So let's try to be a little practical and figure out the right balance.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Neeraj. So as Neeraj said, that it's very impractical or inconvenient for developers to just acquire the token for the payment. But if we talk about enterprise user, it becomes impossible, right? So so with our for example, with our collaboration with IG, they're such a big company, we cannot say that, okay, as to pay us, you have to go to the exchange, create an enterprise account, acquire some NKN token, and send it to us. That's just impossible with such a large scale company. So basically, the only solution is that we some sort become the middle point. We accept the fiat from them, and we then distribute the reward as in forms of the token to the contributors. That's the only possibility we see for now. And same as Neeraj, I also hope that at one day the token can become one of the mainstream payment methods, but it's not practical yet. And also being the middle point, it also brings some additional values in terms of business, because it naturally brings some business model to this middle point, which is important for open source project, because open source project needs some income to run for the long term, right? And that's good for the whole ecosystem.
No, that's excellent. Excellent. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
The next question I had here, in fact, I'm going to direct this to Jieyi, because I think this could be a good one for you.
Sure,
so,
yeah.
What approach do you think would be good for getting mass adoption outside of the blockchain world? I know you guys are really focused on video streaming and services you provide, but when do you think that can be achieved for blockchain companies?
Oh yeah. I think that's a very good question. So a very relevant question, right? So I think a very good thing here is the ease of integration. So we have a chance to talk to a lot of kind of a traditional video streaming company, right? So when we talk with them, so I feel that there's a lot for them to digest, right? As a insider of the blockchain, of part of blockchain community, we might be very familiar with concept like a private key and public key, this kind of concept, right? But when you explain all those things to them, there's a lot, right? To a lot of new things and a lot to digest. So that, let's say if we can provide a very ease of integration as a first, right, pilot product, then it will probably be easier. We have an easier time to persuade them to continue to work with us, right? To give an example, so recently we have just launched a new product we call the Theta Live Embed. So which is just a JavaScript kind of iframe, right? So which any website, right, any video platform, they can do the integration with just a few lines of JavaScript code changes, and then boom, there you have the Theta player kind of live on your website. So with this kind of integration, then they will be able to, within very little effort, to see the benefit of integrating the Theta network. So after that, then we can gradually, introduce new feature to those partners, and then they can gradually, work with us to adopt this feature, and then to a certain point, we will have the full power of the blockchain, the full power of cryptocurrency live on their network, right? So this is the end goal, but I do think that there's a lot of effort to be put in. Maybe it takes a few years or maybe longer than that, right? So we see that like even for something like the internet or the mobile internet, it takes like 10 years or even 20 years to eat the whole world. So maybe it will take similar time scale, maybe shorter, maybe longer, but I expect that it will happen one day.
Excellent. Does anyone else have anything they would like to add to that in terms of kind of looking at getting that mass adoption out of the blockchain world?
Well, I mean, just kind of going back to what I said earlier, don't want to take too much time because I already kind of talked about it, but I think it's really about just making things as friction-free as possible for people that are on the community. I mean, most of us that are on this panel probably, this is our passion and religion, crypto and decentralization. But I mean, I know a lot of developers because we all originally came from the non-blockchain world, and most people don't necessarily, they're not drinking the Kool-Aid, and we need to make it super easy for them. So it's not about not appreciating blockchains, but making it invisible to those people who are going to get pushback from that, and allowing them to get on as fast as possible. So I definitely think that anybody that's on the panel and anybody that's in the industry, they really need to make sure that their onboarding process, their documentation, everything is as simple as possible, so people would have absolutely no reason to go and use like a centralized sort of solution. They would immediately come to the likes of Bluzelle or NKN or Filecoin or Storj or Theta or whoever.
No, excellent. Thanks, Neeraj. So the next question, maybe Kevin, if you're available. So Kevin, open source is critical for blockchain, but might not be suitable for most business models. So what do you think of this conflict, and how should blockchain companies overcome it? I know you guys have kind of a little bit of both in terms of how Storj kind of presents itself.
Yeah, sure thing. And if you look at kind of the wider, right, there's kind of this parallel open source ecosystem, and a lot of the monetization efforts around open source today tend to fall under this umbrella of commercial open source. And if we look at some of the largest commercial open source companies like MongoDB, like Elasticsearch, and a number of others, right? Like there is opportunities to monetize open source. There are kind of a number of standard methods that people use to monetize open source today, kind of the leading being the open core model, where you have kind of like a free version that anybody can use, and then you have a enterprise version with added security features, tooling and monitoring features that gets sold to enterprise directly. I think where open source wins in the blockchain world is really through kind of the economic incentive layers that blockchain can kind of layer and sprinkle onto open source. And I think when we can marry the two together, right, blockchain is fundamentally open source. Ethereum blockchain, Bitcoin blockchain, these are all open source auditable platforms from both the code perspective and kind of from a state perspective. And I think that the kind of the atomic unit of value that blockchains integrate and bring into open source projects really create a really new compelling monetization opportunity that can kind of help open source break out of this this dilemma that it has around kind of on the one hand creating an open platform and driving new developers and driving new PRs and kind of improving a project, and on the other hand having to monetize it and generate revenue to actually create a sustainable revenue model that is able to keep contributors interested and keep them give them livelihood. And so again, I mean, the way that we're approaching it is we're trying to marry the incentives of the decentralized cloud with open source. And so that way that gets actualized is either through kind of a direct programmatic revenue share at a value attribution level, or through kind of a discounted white label model, all of it being kind of programmatic from a payment perspective. But these are kind of standard business practices, and we think that they can help kind of crack open this open source community and help kind of again bring it together with blockchain. And hopefully that answers your question, Alan.
No, that's great. Great. Thank you so much for that. Awesome. So I guess this next question will go for Raullen. So are you still there, Raullen?
Yeah, I'm here. Just listening.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. So, one of your slides earlier, we're talking about UCAM. So I wanted to dig into that a little bit more. So with the introduction of the UCAM home security camera powered by IoTeX, users can have private secure access to stream HD video, have two-way audio conversations and more. So how is the IoTeX blockchain incorporated, and what elements of this solution are conducted off-chain? I think you kind of touched on that a little bit, but could you dig a little bit deeper into that?
Right. Like my personal belief about blockchain is should behave like a super core, right? So like everything should be like happening off-chain. If one can trust each other without bothering the blockchain. So blockchain should be bothered, if they're in a dispute or something like too important, like two people cannot work it out, then the things come back to the chain. So we have this design be part of the IoTeX platform. So basically like the blockchain will power the identity part. So which we think is super important, right? So once you have the identity, then all the encryption, authorization, those things can go off chain, and can be done in like in an embedded like a software perspective. And then there will be some service providers, so they are providing different services like compute, networking, storage, so on and so forth. I do think those parts should also go off chain when dealing with like the the transactions, but those service providers, they should like have their trust anchored by the blockchain in terms of, they have to stake to provide services. If something goes bad, user can come back to the blockchain to report, to get a refund because they violate some type of SLA, things like that. And also if they're doing a really good job, they should be rewarded by the blockchain automatically. So that's where I think this blockchain should, make best use of itself.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you.
Right.
And then the last but not least, Yilun. So we actually have quite a few questions from the community here and everything. We're going to pick, let me see. So let's start with this one. So how does NKN's data ride compare to its traditional non-blockchain competitors? Now this is actually, and data ride is also part of NKN 2.0 as well. So if you could kind of elaborate on that too.
I actually talk about a few advantage over the talk, and that is actually advantage over the traditional or non-blockchain solutions, and I can repeat it here. So basically, the first one is performance, because we aggregated multiple different concurrent paths, and and we can often get a much higher aggregated bandwidth compared to direct connection. And we actually tested this between our Beijing and US office, and indeed get a much higher bandwidth compared to the traditional way. And by the way, this is also related to the SD1. So, but this is kind of similar to the SD1, but on a different layer. This is purely an overlay network on the application layer, but not on like transport layer or something. So basically, this requires minimal modification to the underlying protocol or like the routing or something, but it can kind of achieve similar results. And also another big advantage is the privacy, because typically with a centralized solution, the data can be viewed or modified by like the relayer, but it is not possible to use when you use data write, because you basically use a public key as the destination address, which is used to encrypt the data before actually send it. So end-to-end encryption is a basic element here, and basically there's no way to break that, even for the relayer, for the miner, or for us. And another thing is for the reliability, and this is another advantage for a decentralized system, because there's absolutely no single point of failure. So this is also kind of achievable, but hard to achieve in a traditional system. Yeah, this is an advantage over traditional competitors. And last but not least, but actually, this is probably one of the most important ones, is cost. Because as a decentralized solution, the cost will be much lower. Yeah, I should mention this earlier.
Awesome. Well, with that, I think we're about ready to wrap it up. So first of all, I want to thank all of the panelists today. I also want to thank all the keynote speakers. Same. And I also want to thank everybody who watched on our YouTube, on Theta, also participated as part of the conversation here on our Zoom as well. Certainly appreciate your time, and thank you so much, and cheers.
Thanks, Alan.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
All right, let me make sure we stop this on the other platforms.